All right, it looks like everyone is in from the waiting room, Brandy. So, and I hit record, so you can probably start whenever you'd like.
All right, thanks, Lauren. Well, great. Well, it's good to see everyone for this advanced consult group meeting today. Hopefully everybody had a nice holiday break if you took one. And welcome back. First things first, on the Monday after holiday is talking about CBO's progress with our federal programs, namely BEAD. And so, but before we get started and we jump right into what we're thinking for next steps, and of course, always want to see if you guys have any suggestions or insights as well. I'm going to go ahead and let Paige provide some legislative updates. I know that process is right around the corner now that we're in December, and so she has a few updates for you. So go ahead, Paige.
All right, thanks. I'll be quick. So the legislative session's just around the corner, preparing for that. And before that, though, the Joint Technology Committee is going to meet on December 16th, 17th, 18th at 9 a.m. And the CBO will be giving an update at one of those meetings. And we'll keep you posted on which meeting that will be, so you can listen in on the audio link if you'd like. There's also a CDOT Dig Once program survey that's out. That survey does close December 31st, so please get your responses in by then, and feel free to forward that to any of your peers as well. And then lastly, we have a broadband legislative stakeholder call. Our first one is going to be on Thursday, so that's at 1 p.m. Please make sure that you register for that and add it to your calendar. And look forward to seeing you then. If you have any questions, just feel free to reach out to me. And I think I'm passing it back to you, Brandy.
Great. Thanks, Paige. Does anybody have any questions for Paige on this item?
Paige, it's Jeff. Could you say again what the deadline for the CDOT Dig Once survey is?
Sure, it's December 31st.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, I missed it.
No worries.
Thanks, Jeff. Anyone else? Excellent. All right. Thanks, Paige, for that. And as always, we look forward to collaborating with you and the team on all things telecom policy this legislative session. So, and Paige will be here on our advanced consult calls to provide any updates to you guys and any feedback that you guys have for us as well. There's plenty of opportunities to engage with the broadband office through the session, and those stakeholder calls in the past have been really beneficial for us to collaborate with you all and others in industry and government on policy that works and makes sense for everybody. So I encourage you guys to stay engaged. So with that, I'm going to jump into the BEAD process. We have been working really diligently over the last several weeks since the application closed on our BEAD program. And so, with all things, I think we've made really good progress in our first initial application round. And we'll have to continue to do a little bit more because we're not quite across the finish line. Again, this is a really huge program, very, very complicated, as we all know. And so there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of regulation, and just things we gotta go through. Pretty much the motions of government, as you guys are aware. So the NTI has been very supportive of us, of course, and we have a few things to talk about. So I'm going to share my screen real quickly, and hopefully I don't mess this up. Can you give me the share ability, Lauren?
Sorry, I was talking on mute. If you click on the share, is it allowing you to, or no?
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
I
great.
think so.
Perfect.
Let me go to this real quick. Hopefully. All right. Let me make sure it works. Good. Okay. So just a few things. Just a quick reminder, here's some high level stats of where we are, or what our program looked like ahead of opening the application. We have $826.5 million, or sorry, 826 dollars. And then obviously we set aside $51 million in incentives and subsidies in addition to that funding. Our BSL eligibility list was 161,885 locations. Here's in the bullet point below, it just gives a quick breakout of what that looks like. So about 62% are locations that are served with 25 over 3, and then 38% are served with 100 over 20 and below. And so that's where we are. Our goal is universal coverage. And we've been preparing since 2022 for this program. So taken a couple years, but we're here. And this is just, you guys have seen this slide. This is just more of like, here we are. We are in phase 2 of the application process. Again, we've closed that. Our next update will have a different timeline, but I just want to remind people how far we've come. This program has been a huge lift for everybody, including our stakeholders. And our application summary, this is on our website if you haven't taken a look. You know, overall, you know, the CBO received $1.7 billion in requests with $517 million in matching. Total program costs are $2.2 billion. We received 185 applications. This number also includes duplications. So we are refining our list and we are in the process of pre-selection of those that will be successful in our round 1 application process. We're going to be working with those applicants over the next several weeks on curing. And there's a lot of things in this program, and you know, we had to be picky, but we couldn't be too picky with the application, especially with the timing. So for those that need to sharpen their pencil a little bit more, have really good applications that might be, you know, we need clarification on a few items, that communication will go out to those applicants today, actually. Or tomorrow, Jonas, I'll let you pick. All in all, we thought it was a very successful first round. You know, our project areas, you know, we have several, we have number of unserved locations applied for is 45,000, number of actually underserved is 44,000, underserved is 67,000. Number of project areas with more than one application is 925, one with project areas with just one application is 1850. And then we have 1900 that received no applications, but we did have an application in every single one of our 64 counties. Of our technology, 139 of those applications was priority, which means they were fiber. 46 were other broadband projects. And again, we have for counties we have that have more than one application, it's 50, and then counties that have one application are 14, but we did not have any counties that did not receive any applications. And here you can see the top counties by project area count are Weld, Larimer, El Paso County, Adams, and Douglas County. No surprise there. These are our most dense counties in the state. And they usually have a pretty good showing, especially when we were working on the capital project funds. We had a lot of folks, we sourced a lot of projects from these counties. Total number of entities that participated are 30. You can see here the application type here, you know, again, a strong showing by non-ILEC service providers. Actually, I clicked too quickly. But we didn't see a strong participation from electrical co-ops, incumbent providers, you know, local governments, and public or private utility companies. And the tribes did participate. Again, we have 2 recognized tribes, so that number is pretty low just in comparison, just because we just have 2. You know, this is our demographics for industry in our program. And so just a couple of key observations. Applicants always wait till the last minute to apply, so no surprise there. We had a moment Friday before the application closed where it was like, I don't know, this is going to be tricky, but but a lot of people apply at the last minute. We have 4,600 PAs, 2,700 PAs were applied for, so that leaves us at 60%. And 40% of our project areas remain. Nothing's been spoken for those project areas. Extremely high cost per location thresholds will determine our mix of technology again. And I'll go over that here in a second. Our average cost per passing per region versus statewide, you know, we did analyze that. We're probably likely going to have to use an extremely high cost per location threshold for probably statewide. It just doesn't work to do it regionally within our budget. Our point ceiling is 14,000 with our locations per passing a number, and our floor was 23,400 using statewide averages. Our highest cost BSLs are 105,000. Our lowest cost was 3,200. So just high level statistics on the application. And then here you can see the visual of that. For the counties that received a lot of applications, they're in pink, purple range, and then obviously the lighter shades of blue, not as many applications. But these are our rural counties, so we wouldn't expect to see a ton of applications in these areas. But really happy that we received at least one in every county. This is a visual that you can see here. The yellow is definitely no applications, and you can tell, like, I'm sure if you laid this map on top of our mountain ranges in the state, this would coincide very nicely with the project areas that did not receive any applications. And so obviously you can see here, the darker the blue, the more applications that were received. I would say, this coincides very, very, there's no surprise here. I mean, I think when you look at the challenges of construction in our state, yellow and light blue, you're going to see a lot more expensive areas as opposed to some of our Eastern Plains counties and locations. And let me just go to one more slide. I know you have your hand up, Ralph, but I just want to try to get through this and I'll take your question. BEAD application intake summary here. You can see this is the unserved percentage here per application. So under unserved and underserved ratio. So you can see here this map. This isn't on our website, but it's helpful additional information to share. So again, a lot of our unserved and underserved project areas are in areas that are very, very expensive. So just a few next steps for our program. We're in the process of analyzing a lot of strategies obviously of our current application process, which subrecipients we're going to work with to cure, which ones are above the extremely high cost per location threshold that we can't afford, and then also our no bid project area outreach. So in our volume 2, we reach out to ISPs with adjacent project areas with no bids to see if they'll pick up some of those remaining locations. We do have incentive dollars to help with some of that. Remediate high cost areas from current applications based on our extremely high cost per location threshold. And so again, we can't afford every location, and I'll say this here shortly, but this has become more of a budget exercise more than anything. We have $826.5 million, and we're looking at $2.6 billion in costs. So we have to sharpen our pencil. So for those locations we just can't afford, we're going to actually, set those aside and make them part of another round 2 process for an extremely high cost. But in addition to the extremely high cost per location threshold, we're adding another extremely high cost subsidy on top of those locations and they'll be great candidates for alternative technology. And then we'll update our project area map. So we'll create a new project area map that includes remaining project areas and extremely high cost per location threshold locations, as well as our extremely high cost. So another additional subsidy. This map will be available before we open up a second round so that ISPs can check it out and bid on it. And then we'll roll into our second round of alternative technology. I will tell you this will likely be an alternative technology round because we can't afford any more fiber after our first round. But we will open up to everybody to apply for. And if a fiber provider comes in at the extremely high cost per location threshold or below, then they'll be open for consideration or subject to consideration, because obviously in the BEAD program, we have to prioritize fiber first. So if somebody in the San Graded Crystal Mountain Range can do fiber, do a BSL for 3,700 per passing in that area of the state, we welcome them to apply. The likelihood of that is very low, though. So we're probably looking at more of a alternative technology focused round. We don't know if we're gonna post our high cost per location thresholds or high cost subsidy threshold numbers yet. We're still working through that. We're still massaging that data, so I don't have that for you today. But that second round will be open like 30 days, not 45. The reason why we're not going to do 45 is because, you know, we just went through this process. A lot of the folks that apply will have the same application, which we're going to try to make it easier for them so you don't have to submit all of the, you know, the data that you've already submitted. So for example, your managerial capabilities, your financial capabilities. So we're going to try to make sure you don't have to resubmit that and really just focus on the network design and the technology for that second round. Although if we have new providers that want to come into the market and apply, they'll have to fill out the full application if they haven't already done so. We are opening up to existing applicants and also new applicants. I know some states are only choosing to work with the ones they've pre-qualified. I don't think that works in Colorado because we don't have enough money to be selective on who we're working with. We just want everybody to participate. I don't want to rule out any good providers that can get the job done for us. So we are opening it to everybody. So that second round, like I said, will be open to all applicants using the same criteria. And we're expecting to cover the remaining project areas in round 2. Don't want to have to do the second or third round because then, you know, at this point we'll be out. You know, we're looking at a program completion of, you know, of the grant making way well into next year. And we want to try to deliver on behalf of Colorado as soon as we can. And then once we get to 100%, hopefully in this last round we will submit our final proposal to the NTIA. I know Louisiana was able to do that this last month, which was great for them. The NTIA did knock down the public comment process for that final proposal from 30 days to 2 weeks. I think that's really helpful. Again, the final proposal, you know, I just don't see us being able to make really any changes based on public comment at that point. I mean, there might be something we can do, but again, like I've said the whole entire time, the NTIA doesn't really let us make changes anyway. So it's just probably more for your review. And if anything, we've missed anything, of course, please let us know. If we forgot to cross a T or dot an I, you can also let us know, but that's the process. I want to go into second round strategy real quickly. Again, we're just now working on this. So I just got some information today. So this isn't, this is our more of an outline than it is anything. Again, available budget is going to drive our technology. So again, this is 100% a budget exercise. The state of Colorado was not allocated enough money to do exactly everything in this program. And honestly, I don't think any of us really expected to get to 100% fiber in our state. We're just a really pricey, but very beautiful state. So we're going to apply 2 subsidy thresholds in that second round. Again, the extremely high cost per location threshold and that expensive subsidy threshold. We're going to be using some of this we're going to be using this approach also to deconflict the applications that we've already analyzed. And then we'll communicate where we landed prior to opening this application on these 2 subsidies. The expensive subsidy we have to run by the NTIA. We don't have permission to do that, but we're just going to tell them that's what we have to do. And they seem pretty open-minded these days about these things. So we're going to help them out with some new guidance. Maybe that'll help the rest of the states that are behind us. But the goal is to achieve optimal coverage with priority and other last mile projects and focus on alternative technologies, including LEO. We're probably looking up to 20% of our locations as LEO. Again, you know, we just even, sorry, I keep clicking. Even fixed wireless is pricey in these areas. So we're going to try to make sure that really good stewards of taxpayer dollars. We don't want to look at, you know, BSLs that are $1 million per passing. We certainly got some of that in our applications. Some of our ISPs did identify those locations. And we're gonna, like I said, we're gonna update the project area maps for the second round for ISPs to bid on. Part of refining our data and scrubbing our data will be to remove locations that are not actually BSLs. I know we've heard this feedback like, oh, it's BSL, a waste transfer station. There's no way there would be internet there, or it's a baseball field, or it's, I don't know, it's a river, you know? So we do have those on our list of locations to remove. And so we're going to be doing that. One thing that I didn't put in here that should be noted is we are working off of version 3 of the FCC fabric. We are now on version 5 of the FCC fabric. And if you've been reading a lot of the headlines lately, a lot more locations have been added to that map as served. And so we are really pushing and pressuring and advocating for the for incorporation of the version 5 fabric into our round 2. So what that'll look like, because for us, you know, it's roughly, we were able to serve 31,000 more locations a year ago than we are today. And what we don't want to do is we don't want to use version 3 as the sole source of truth, just a data point, because if we just use version 3, we will fund overbuild. And we don't want to fund overbuild in this program. It's very important. I've advocated to the highest level of the land. And so we in that 31,000 locations, that's around 100. And when you look at it, you know, the beat allocation, we had about, you know, $5,500 per passing allocated to us in the state based on 160,000 locations. You know, that savings for us, it represents around $170 million in our program if we can just take those and put them in somewhere else and call them served. So we had a couple of conversations with the NTIA, and they're open to it now. So how we do that is still be determined. We don't have that, but it looks like we still have to keep the eligibility list in front and center, but we might change those locations. We might categorize them differently on the map to show that they are the version 5 of the FCC fabric. They said they're served, so it's highly unlikely we will allocate funding to those locations based on that data. So we're just trying to work around what we're doing there, and then we also have to, you know, get the NTIA's buyout. But I have advocated really heavily on version 5. Again, as you guys know, the NTI didn't really give us a lot of post-challenge process flexibility. In the amount of time it has taken to get through the challenge process, you're looking at a different version of the map. And I know one state, Kansas, they ended up pausing their program to include the most recent data on the FCC map. And when they did that, the FCC map had a new update to it. So you're kind of chasing you're chasing your tail on the mapping data. And the NTIA, you know, their recommendation was to us to just redo our challenge process. And that was not tenable because it's really expensive to do those challenge processes for the state. But more importantly, it's really expensive for ISPs to spend a lot of time on data that's going to change in another 6 months. The other piece that the NTI had for guidance was, you know, for applicants, they can do a second round, and we can negotiate those locations that are on version 5 of the map. We can negotiate those locations out of the application. That's a problem because, you know, it impacts the network design. It might make those projects infeasible if we have people submitting for bids on those and then CBO comes in and takes them out. And we don't have a lot of time and money to negotiate 31,000 individual locations, and neither do our stakeholders. So they're listening to us on that as well. So they've been working with us to kind of have these really creative workarounds so that we can save our providers money and we can save the state the money, and we can get to so that we can achieve the objective, and that's not to negotiate every single location on the map. And so we're really pleased with the NTI support there. And back to my slide here, you know, we will prioritize unserved locations first in round 2, and then underserved. This is one of the pillars of the program. And then one of the things that we're going to do, and this was a suggestion by our consultant, and we thought this was really good. We're going to conduct market outreach and feedback that focuses on project areas and guidance that makes it easier to bid. So we're going to spend a little time reaching out and talking to folks individually, not in a group format, because I think sometimes when we set up a call asking people for what their feedback is, you know, some people chime in, but most of the time we don't generate a lot of feedback in a really large group forum. So we're going to make ourselves available individually to those that want to help us out. So it's kind of a mini focus group, if you will, but just with the CBO. And we're also giving people that don't have time to meet with us to talk about how we can make the program the second round easier. We're going to have you fill out a form, and you can just bullet point some items that might encourage ISPs to bid on second round. And so we're going to meet you guys both ways, form, and then also if you want to talk to us directly. And just because I know it'll be asked, are those forms horrible? Yes, they are. So don't put in there your grandmother's secret recipe for cornbread in there if you don't want people to see it. But it is. I just want to say, I know I have bad jokes. You don't have to laugh. It's fine. So that's what we're going to do in addition to that round 2. And we'll do our best to include feedback in the round 2 guidance. I will tell you, it's really hard sometimes with the federal government. Again, it's very prescriptive. It's not that they're bad people. They just have to manage this program at a level that they can manage the entire country. So I like to think we are special, but sometimes we're not. But we'll do our best to advocate on behalf of you all. And that's where we are at the BEAD program. We're working. I don't have a lot of specifics on numbers and who's a provisional award and all those things that I know people want to hear, but we are almost there, and we'll see a lot of activity this month. Our goal is to launch the application, hopefully the second application before January 1, and give you guys time to fill those out. Give people time to fill out the application. So. But that's where we are, and I'll pause there and I'll start taking any questions. I think Ralph, you were first. So then Ralph, then Carrie.
Yeah, thanks. If you could back up to the slide, application summary and observations right before the maps. Yeah, this one. I kind of went through the last 3 bullet points a little bit fast. And so I was wondering if you could provide a little bit more clarity. So if I understood you correctly, you are not doing the regional based EHCPLT, correct? You're
Right.
doing statewide.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a statewide.
And then you mentioned average cost per passing per region versus statewide. And I wasn't sure what you meant by that.
It's more of a bullet point to remind myself what to tell you that we're not doing. We analyze both per region and state, and we are choosing the statewide.
Okay.
There's not much difference between the region and the state, and if we did the regional, we would blow our budget. So we decided to use the statewide average.
To inform the EHCPLT, or is that why you looked at that?
Yeah, we used both. We wanted to analyze both to help us make an informed decision on which approach we should take.
Okay.
Because we did get feedback from stakeholders saying, we wanted to look at it region by region. Some regions are more expensive than others, and there was a bunch of feedback. So we analyzed it, and it just doesn't make a huge difference in the outcome, and it actually has more consequences to those regions than if we had used as if we used a statewide average. So it would mean that, for example, you have like a region 12, like their extremely high cost per location threshold was really, really high. And when we use our BEAD minimum outlay, the way we're scaling it, they wouldn't get any of their applications approved because they would all be above the extremely high cost per location threshold. So we'd literally have to throw everyone out of region 12 based on that regional approach. And so it had bigger consequences than if we used a statewide average where we can actually qualify those within that scaled approach. And so that next bullet point, the point ceiling, so, the floor, was 14,000, extremely high cost. The highest was 23,000. Well, region 12, most of their applications were way above 23,000 per passing. So if we had used region by region methodology, we wouldn't have funded any of them because they wouldn't have scored enough points based on the cost per passing. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah. No, this is all really good work. I have to commend you and your team on getting this point. Do you have any idea how much of the over application in terms of dollars you will be able to reclaim based on the fact that you've got multiple applications? If you understand.
So I think your question is, after we go through our analysis, how much are we able to fund with our current analysis, and how much do we have remaining to address round 2?
Yeah.
Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the approach we're taking. So what high level, and again, I don't have like the numbers here right now because we're still assessing.
No.
But what it might look like is, and this is just an example. We know that we have the universe of our funding is 826.5 million. For the sake of this conversation, not real data, let's say, we determine that we can afford 50% of our BEAD money, we can afford using priority, right? And we'll have to extract out those really high costs per locations. And I will tell you, a lot of ISPs did a really good job identifying those. So they made our job easier in some ways. And so we're gonna take those out. We're gonna let the applicant know, because we're not gonna go in. I think one of the feedback was we're concerned that CBO can unilaterally go in and change our application. Well, we're not gonna do that without having a conversation. We're gonna pull those out, put them in a project area. And then we'll move forward with those priority projects with our 50% allocation that we're saying is for fiber. And then after we do this exercise where we rescope those fiber projects just to be fiber, we're going to, set up a round just specifically for alternative technology using those locations we put in a project area. And then we'll have folks bid on them. And then so the remaining money, let's say for this example, we're saying, I don't know, what's 826 divided by 5?
Get it.
For the other $413 million of change will be the set aside for round 2.
Got it.
And so that'll be our budget and our benchmark for how we're going to analyze affordability and what we can afford in round 2. Hopefully we can do it all in round 2 or round 3. Round 2, we're not looking at a round 3 right now. We really encourage people to show up and put their best applications forward in round 2. The NTI really wants us to get to 100%. So I've asked to see if we could have some flexibility, and I was politely told no. So we're gonna do our best with the money that we have.
Yep. So okay, that's really, really helpful. And so I'm assuming that by extracting the high cost locations from those project areas where there's been bids, that your expectation is that reduces the cost for the cost that the bidder will actually encounter in that, and so you'd have some savings from extracting that.
Yeah, we'd have the state will have savings, but also the ISP will, because they won't have to have so much match. So, it impacts the total project cost, but it also reduces the amount for the providers to provide as well.
Okay. That's helpful. Now I understand. Thank you.
Okay. Ari, you're next.
So my question, thanks Brandy for the update. My question, just kind of back to timeline as far as the second round or reopening the application portal. I think you maybe said January is what you're looking at now because you want to take some of the feedback from providers and others. Am I understanding that right? Or can you just elaborate a little bit more on timeline for when that application portal would reopen?
Yeah, it's a good question, Carrie. And yeah, I'm always thinking of timelines I think ideally we would open the application before January 1st. Before Christmas, we don't want to open it on Christmas Day or anything, but we would love to do that. But if not, it'll be right after the first of the year. I think if we had like an over allocation, like a lot of the states, east of the Mississippi River do, I think we'd be a little quicker because, we don't, it takes time to see cost savings. So we have to spend extra time on extra steps because of that. So, ideally, to answer your question, before the end of the year or early January. It really depends. And as soon as we know, we'll put it out, but it'll be in the next 30 to 45 days. And we also have to redo our map. So we're not going to be collecting public comment on the map because it is what it is at this point. But we'll try to group things that make sense. But especially for those alternative providers like and Leo, I think the project areas are going to be what they're going to be because we have locations, and some project areas are so remote that nobody's going to get there except for Leo. So we think it'll be a little bit easier this time, and hopefully we can collect some of that feedback in our market research. The market research will be pretty quick. We can run these processes concurrently, but I would say at the latest, give us 30 to 45 days on an application, a second round opening.
Okay, no, that's helpful. And I guess just one question or follow along. And I think from my members' perspective, I think taking the time is okay. I think there was little provider, there wasn't as many providers that applied. And there were certain reasons for that. So I guess my one question in this next 30, 45 days, whatever the timeline ends up being before you open the process, is the maps really the only thing you all are going to be changing or looking at changing ahead of round 2? Are you going to be, you mentioned meeting with folks, taking some feedback from providers and others, but how do you plan to incorporate that feedback into the round 2 guidance, if you will? Or, are you going to, I guess, what changes are you going to make, if you will? Not what changes are you going to make, because you can't answer that at the moment. I understand that, but will there be changes, if you will?
Yeah, there will be changes to the map, Carrie. It'll probably be just redistributing BSLs within our and updated project areas based on those cost DSLs in our thresholds, our 2 thresholds. One of the things that I was encouraged by is the NTIA. They gave us permission to propose what we want to do for round 2, even if there are major deviations from volume 2. They basically said that we can make any deviations we think would be helpful to encourage providers that do not change law. And so I feel like in this moment we have a lot more discretion than we and a lot more flexibility in round 2 than we had in round 1. And if we could have added this flexibility in round 1, and a lot of ideas came from your members, I think we maybe would have saw a higher participation rate, but we were told we couldn't have that flexibility. So the fact that the NTIA is looking to us to kind of propose some of those deviations to help us achieve greater participation is great. So we will come up with either an addendum or a separate, probably an addendum, a round 2 addendum to our original guidance, highlighting what's new for round 2. We are coming up with that proposal, and I'm going to submit it to the NTIA probably tomorrow for their review so that we can get going on it. We'll make those changes to volume 2 concurrently as we run our process, but they're really open to it because we want to get more participation.
Okay.
So yeah, so there'll be a lot of changes. Good changes though.
Thank you. And I'll follow up. I have been talking with my members just about some feedback and kind of post round 1. So I'll likely follow up with you offline just about feedback specific from my members.
Okay. Yeah, we'll get a meeting set up. I saw your email today. So looking forward to that feedback, Carrie.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, one question and then some feedback for you guys. If you go back to that same chart that Ralph was referencing, right before the maps, that last bullet, I had a question on that, but I was going to ask the same question and you covered all those, except for on the last one that said the highest cost were 105K. Is that the highest average cost per passing that you saw, and then the lowest cost per passing average on the whole particular applicant? And were there even higher than that? If not, if that were individual, I think you might have mentioned that too, that some were really high, even higher than that 105K on some individual locations.
Yeah, they're averages, Eric.
Okay.
So sorry about that. I should have put averages there, but yeah, they're averages.
Yeah,
But
I
there were
figured they
some that
were.
were higher.
Yeah, I figured they
Yeah,
were,
there's
but I
definitely
wanted
ones
to
that are higher.
clarify. Yeah. Okay, and then the other one, some feedback. We had a summit the week before Thanksgiving here in southwestern Colorado that included some of the tech leads that were looking at middle mile strategies. The last time we met was about the time you came on and you came down to our meeting in Cortez, and we had shortly after that done our strategization down in the southwestern corner that led to our middle mile fund grant, which you guys all know about too. So we're kind of revisiting that and see what gotten taken care of by CPF and what we have remaining. We also talked to the ISPs it was all day, like 9 to 4. And then we talked to the ISPs for an hour, kind of go over those strategies or the priorities, as well as they get their feedback. And BEAD came up. And then the afternoon was more workforce housing or not workforce housing, it comes up too, but workforce development rather. And so the sector convener folks came down, and that's some of the other stuff that may come up later in this call if time allows, I'm sure it looks like. But the feedback that we got from the ISPs on not particularly our priority set, but the BEAD applications, because we had a lot that we covered in our region, Region 9, that were not covered at all. And we just kind of asked with like, well, what's keeping you from applying for those? Was it, just the overall cost for passing that you analyzed? Was it, a number of things? And one of the things that came up was the time frame given to actually put together a binding agreement that they had they felt like it was too short to really put one together that they could be comfortable with. So maybe you're stuck with 30 days. That might be already in your plan. By shortening that on the ones that are even harder to design and engineer, that might be even a heavier lift. If nothing else, I think I would encourage you to at least wait till after the first, because nothing happens between Christmas and New Year's. And a lot of these areas, as you mentioned, are in mountainous areas of Colorado. That is about the time frame that we get socked in snow between people being off for the holidays. I mean, in the 30-day time clock starting, that's already shortened. I think you're gonna, especially for alternative technologies for fixed wireless, there's almost more that you have to do than fiber as far as ground truth and engineering, finding places with sight lines and potential locations to put towers that have power and have line of sight or fiber capabilities to get to them. There's a lot of engineering that goes into place, and this is like the worst time of the year in mountainous Colorado to do that in a short time frame. So that was the feedback.
Yeah, I appreciate that feedback, Eric. I appreciate it. Any other questions? All right, well, if there's no other questions on this agenda item, again, this is really great feedback from you all, so I appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to talking with some of you on round 2 and collecting some more feedback on increasing participation. And we are very encouraged by the NTIA's openness to working with us on what a round 2 should look like specifically for Colorado. Every state's different. And we don't typically compare ourselves to a lot of other states because we're just not a lot of other states. So having the ability to design something that'll work for us is key. And then using the most recent data to avoid overbuild. Those are the two things that, if we're to take away anything from the last 30 days, were really, really great great things for the CBO and will be great for providers as well that are interested in this program. So stay tuned and look for more on BEAD over the next 30 days. And we'll continue to sharpen our pencils and get to 100%. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And then Lauren, if you want to pull up the agenda, we can finish the rest of these, the last remaining points. They shouldn't take very long. They're just really high level updates.
Okay. Yeah, I think Jonas is up next. So I will throw the agenda. Let's go ahead, Jonas.
All right, so let's talk about where we're at with middle mile initiatives. As you know, we've been talking about what our plans are for middle mile for the last several months now. We went over what those next steps would look like. So I wanted to give an update on where we're at with those next steps. The first big one being, in order to move this agenda forward, this middle mile agenda, we really needed to secure a partnership with CDOT in order to leverage their dark fiber. And so I'm pleased to let everybody know that we do have an agreement in place with CDOT that is currently in the execution process and should be fully executed here in the next week or two. So we're really excited about that. That's going to open up the door for us to continue to move this forward. Part of the momentum in moving this forward is now we can release our RFPs. RFP 1 that is expected later this month to be published, probably in the next couple of weeks. That is going to be to bring on a partner that will help us inventory and audit all of CDOT's fiber statewide to better understand what's in the ground today and how to best leverage that against those middle mile initiatives. The other RFP that we are publishing also around the same time, middle of this month, will be to partner with a consultant who can help us roadmap the next steps in launching a middle mile network, potential partnerships with existing middle mile networks, and really understanding everything that needs to be in place in order for us to be successful. So those RFPs will be published later this month. We're really excited about moving that forward and the partnerships that will create, and we'll keep you posted along the way as that develops. And then if there aren't any questions about workforce or about middle mile, I'd like to jump into workforce. Excellent. Let's talk about workforce and where we're at with that. 2024 was about really setting up the program. We launched this workforce plan in 2023. 2024 was about getting it stood up. Michael Murphy and Delia Sanchez have done an extraordinary job putting together a committee of folks from all over industry and education and specialty groups. And it's been about awareness, and we've done just a hell of a job putting out our awareness campaign. Lauren has been instrumental in that as well, those initiatives. We've got a workforce video that will soon be launched in the weeks to come that really outlines what we're up against and how people can get involved. And so as we move into 2025, we move from awareness into implementation, standing up curriculums, programs, training facilities that can start producing the talent needed to fill those workforce shortages in broadband as we move into 2026 and really being able to fill those positions by then. Ralph, I know you've been part of the workforce committee. Any quick comments or anything, any feedback that you've got on how that's going based on your perspective?
Sure. I think good start. I think there's some good initiatives. I think my view has been fairly narrow in terms of where in the state I've been seeing activity, but I do see some good resources being developed there, and yeah, it'll be exciting to get some of those things in place.
Excellent. Well, we're happy to have you involved. Thank you for your support with workforce as we continue to move that forward. Anything else about those two initiatives? I know we've got we're out of time, but anything else from you, Lauren?
The only other thing, I just want to remind people that the public comment window for our new grant program, Advance Local or State and Local Dollars, the public comment period ends on December 6th. So I will include a link in the notes when we send that out to everybody. But if you want to take a look at what we plan for that grant program and provide comment, you have, I think, till the end of the week to do that. I can't remember if I think that might be Friday. So that's all for me. Okay. And I don't know, Brandy, do you want to close this out or?
All right. Yeah. I'll just come off of mute here. So we're about 2 minutes over, and I'm gonna try to respect the time that we have slotted here, even though we might be a little bit over. So I'm opening up discussion. If anybody has any, what I'd like to do maybe is hold this to next time. But if you guys have any agenda items that you'd like us to cover at the next advanced consult meeting, please let us know. Just send us an email. But again, yeah, just thanks for your participation and just being a sounding board and letting us know what the feedback is from people that you're talking to. So really appreciate it. If we don't see you before the holiday, you have a safe holiday season and happy new year to all of you. And we will convene next year. Take care.